All right, guys, welcome to episode 7 of the Black Label Bodybuilding Podcast. Today I am joined by Lucky the Irish, lucky number 7, Darragh Mac. How are you getting on, mate?
What's happening, bro? Hope you're keeping,
No, sorry?
hope you're keeping well.
Yeah, all good, all good. You're someone I've chatted to kind of on and off through the years because we did our first show together, the PCA COVID special. I don't know if you. I remember I think pretty sure the first interaction actually was sitting waiting and getting tanned.
Yeah.
And it was me, you, and Ryan. I'm pretty sure we ended up skipping the queue. Actually,
What actually happened was my coach at the time was giving me a lift, and he was late in traditional fashion. Like I was literally going to walk to the venue, and I would have been quicker had I walked in the first place. But I got there late, got in. We were literally at the back of the queue completely. And then where they were calling us for the tan, it wasn't like in the gym itself in Ultimate Fitness in Birmingham, wasn't it? It was like out the back upstairs. So when they called people, I just like looked around and I just made a beeline.
yeah.
So I think I was the first person in, get the tan done and gone, and I was like the last person who arrived. So
Yeah, I was pretty much exactly the same. It's it's funny seeing the people that competed in that show for the first time. Those of us who are still doing it. It's kind of cool seeing how far everyone's kind of come along their journeys because not everyone is still doing it. But the guys that are, there's a lot of people who've made some pretty serious progress. We're all now well on our way to, being open bodybuilders for the most part, and it's pretty cool to kind of see that.
it's funny, mate, because from that show, actually, the only people that I really did connect with and stay in touch with after that show ended up being all the people who actually have stuck with it and made tremendous progress since. Like yourself, like Declan White as well, like Jack Fleming. They're a lot of the guys, they were in my class, obviously, and they were a lot of the guys I stayed in touch with for a very long time, over and back on Instagram. And yeah, I've made some pretty wild progress since. So it's nice to see. I think your first show, when you pop your cherry like that, you'll always have that sentimental attachment to like that show and the people who were there and the people you met and stuff. So yeah, it's cool, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's probably something to say for people who are kind of mental enough to pull off a prep when everything was locked down, and then going to that one show. It was quite the experience. Because I remember PCA announced.
That was on in Hull up until like 2 weeks ago, and then they moved to Birmingham. So yeah, I was originally meant to do PCA Ireland. They cancelled that, and then I like booked that show, and then like 2 weeks out they changed it, so I had to like rebook all my accommodation and stuff. Luckily, I was flying into Manchester, so I kind of split Hull and Birmingham, so I was lucky there. But yeah, I can remember that time, mate. It was a wild time, and there was like nobody in the crowd really, so it was a bit of a weird experience for a first show, but still very fond memories of it nonetheless.
Aye, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I was the same. I was supposed to be doing the PCA Scottish, and I got cancelled. Like, I'm sure it was like 4, 5, or 6 weeks out or something like that. I felt like the world was falling apart, seeing all the shows like slowly getting cancelled. I remember being in the gym, and it finally got announced that all the lockdowns happened. And I've distinct memories on the leg press, and just like it was very disappointing. Everyone was obviously disappointed with lockdown, but I think all of us guys tried to do a prep. It was a very weird experience.
We were quite lucky as well, mate, because I don't know what way it was over here. I think it was the same, but when I went back home to Ireland, 2 weeks later, everywhere went back into lockdown again. So we literally like just got this small window of about a month or 2 months where the world opened up again, and then it was back into lockdown. So we were lucky, And I remember that prep, like I did the first 7 weeks of that prep with like a barbell, 150 kilos of plates, like 15-pound dumbbells or something, and like bands and cuffs in my apartment, like doing cuffed exercises for my hamstrings off like my balcony. I had like a carabiner attached to the balcony with like a band and a cuff, and I was doing hamstring curls. Like it was wild,
Yeah.
But at that time I was so like, no, I'm doing a show. I don't care. This is it. This is the year. And I'm so glad I followed through with that, and actually stuck it out, because I think had I not, I wouldn't have probably ended up doing, everything like I have done afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I was weirdly blessed actually for that prep because the Scottish gyms weren't open when the English gyms were. PCA announced the show when the English gyms opened. Again, it must have been the same for yourself. But I actually had the gym that I trained at the time, the owner reached out and was like, if you're going to do this prep, you can come in. It's like you had to train, I think we had to train after 11 p.m, have all the shutters down, and like not make any noise kind of thing. There was a few times like the police were driving past outside, and we were having to someone must have reported us, but it was because it was me and a training partner. Really weird situation, but that was a brutal prep for me because I'd got in good shape for the first prep that had happened, and then lockdown happened, and I couldn't hold that body composition to save my life. And coach ended up having me on DNP for the first 4 weeks or something, which for your first prep's probably not the way to start it off.
Straight in with the DNP,
that prep was pretty mental. It was quite fun. It was probably the most, maybe not now, but it was some silly doses. Anyway, but it goes to show the amount you take doesn't necessarily change how you look, because it's that. I probably wasn't ready to do that first show, but I'm glad I did it. But could have been a bit more developed. But it's funny seeing you. You were in, was it Classic that you did? Yeah.
Yeah, I did Classic first timers at the time. I was actually originally meant to do men's physique because again it was my first show. I wasn't really carrying that much size. I'd only really decided, okay, I'm going to start bodybuilding now at the start of that year, and the show was in October, I think. So I was actually training for a marathon, mate, the year before. I was meant to do the marathon in November, and I got injured. I was on my endurance hype. I was doing a lot of cycling, doing a lot of running, and I got injured 6 weeks out from the marathon, which was the end of November. So it was start in November. I was like, right, I'm doing a bodybuilding show next year. So I kind of hopped on at that stage, and I was only on 250 tests for maybe 3-4 months before I actually started that prep. So I was like, I don't have a lot of size here. I just have to do men's physique. That's where everyone starts, Yeah. And then as I was moving along through the process, sending my check-in pictures to my coach at the time and stuff, he was like, try and open up your lats more. Try and do this, try and do that. I was like, mate, I'm trying to do that. And I just looked wank in the men's physique poses. And when I was taking my check-in pictures anyway, all I was doing was hitting front lat spreads, front doubles. I didn't like men's physique. I liked bodybuilding. I just had that imposter syndrome. Maybe it was I'm not gonna do well enough there. And I think at 6 weeks out, I changed potentially. 6 weeks out or 5 weeks out, I actually emailed them and I just changed. So I'd already registered, I think, at that point for men's physique, and I actually moved to Classic. And I'm glad I did, because I think I would have got smoked in men's physique at that show. And I came 4th out of 9th. In Classic, which was pretty decent, because three guys ahead of me were good, and they were a bit older than me and stuff like that. So and I was taking 500 mig for that prep, so I was just a baby. But mate.
No, it's as I say, it's cool seeing kind of your journey since then. I obviously followed you after that show, and seeing everything you've done. It's cool. Kind of, you're saying that you were going to be running a marathon the year before. Now you are very much living the bodybuilder life, right? You've obviously prepped one. You've done, was it one season that you've done since then?
Yeah, just one season, and that was last year. So I took 3 years between shows, pretty much, because I knew there was a massive gap I needed to close size wise. I don't think I'm going to ever have to take that much time off, nor would I want to take that much time off again. But I think I needed to just gain a little bit more size, mate, and kind of get to where I needed to be. So I've only done 2 seasons, really, 4 shows, that's all. So I'm still super new to the game, really. I've only really feel like I've started bodybuilding. I don't even feel like a bodybuilder yet, mate, to be perfectly honest with you. Last season felt like my first season, because it felt like my first prep, it felt like my first season. And even going into this next season, I feel like I've dusted off the cobwebs a little bit, but I'm like, have I even really earned my stripes here that much? I don't feel like I have. And maybe it's just the competitive nature in me. It's right, I need to win a big class here before I'm a bodybuilder. But again, that's just something we tell ourselves as well, in a way. No.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. So I've done 3 seasons now, and the second one, I remember kind of walking away, and I was just I still wasn't totally sure of it. I was sure of myself and my placing and things. And it was the last one that I did, where I picked up a couple of seconds in some of the kind of well-attended shows in Scotland, and that I I walked away from that being like, right, okay, we're doing it now. Like, this is bodybuilding now.
Yeah, mate, because I think I remember your prep. I was following that along very closely, watching all your stories, etc. And I remember you were buzzing with those results. I think you almost probably didn't expect in yourself to do as well as you actually did, and you smashed it. And obviously, you probably thought, oh, I'm only after taking a short time away from stage here. Have I made that many improvements, etc., etc. And then you showed up and you got some really good results. And maybe that was more to do with the process of the prep itself and how you kind of, felt mentally, and your execution was probably a little bit better. It suited you a little bit more, for where you were at, like, different approach, and I think that makes a big difference also.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been interesting because I think find that you'll be yourself, but like on this journey through bodybuilding, there's so many different approaches that work for different people, and all you can do is try them. And I'm a big believer in going all in, and you commit to the style that you're going to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work, and you don't know until you've done it. Because that was like, obviously my second season was with Cuba, and he runs a very tight ship. He does it in a very specific kind of way, and it obviously produces incredible results. And I was peeled, like I was absolutely fucking on death's door peeled, and I'm incredibly proud of that because I didn't know if that was on the cards for me. But I found the last prep I did with Hilly, he did do things a bit differently. We had a few more kind of refeed days. We did like more off-plan meals and stuff, and on paper, I think executing without that sounds like, I don't know, maybe a more professional approach or something, like that should be the right way, but it just didn't quite resonate with me, and it left me just mentally in a bit of a weird state. Yeah. But then, as I say, the one with Hilly just seemed to click, and that's not to take anything away from how that first prep or the second prep went. It just didn't quite click for me, kind of thing, and it took me trying different things to find it.
It's horses though, mate, isn't it? Because different approaches will work for different people. I had this conversation with someone this morning too. Like I'm naturally, my inclination is to be like very, very uptight. Maybe neurotic and stuff, very stressed, very anxious. So I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I have to have everything nailed. I have to have this super militant routine. And if anything's out of line, it like really fucks up my head. And I feel like I understand now that probably causes me more harm than good a lot of times. Maybe I need to take a step back here and there, so that I don't just like burn myself out mentally, right? Obviously being really, really good on paper, like you said, and being very optimal on paper, it does work to a certain extent, but if it's going to affect where you're at mentally, then that's probably going to affect things more than anything. Where the mind goes, the body will follow. I really do kind of believe that. And I see a lot of guys who are a lot more laid back in their approach than I might be. They're kind of cruising through prep. They're not worried about maybe when they're eating their meals per se, or, when they're doing this or that. And like, they just look so much better sometimes because they're just so chilled out and relaxed about everything, or they have more flexibility or whatever the case may be. I think I kind of put myself in this tunnel that I think I need to be in, and it can be a little bit damaging at times. But yeah, I think obviously, we've both been coached by Cuba, and he does have a very specific approach. Obviously I'm still with him, so like that's an approach that I kind of resonate with, and it does suit me. I like to be pushed, like I like to be held to a very high standard, and I think that's hard to do for a long period of time, right? It really is. But I kind of enjoy the challenge of that nonetheless. But I do think there are areas maybe where I need a little bit less of some things, just so that I don't fucking lose my head,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, literally what you just described is how I felt. It was funny, off the back of my first prep, which felt a little bit too laid back, especially for my first prep. And because of that, I feel like, especially in that last week, I really feel like the look didn't quite go how it should have, and I think that a lot of that was just not controlling enough variables in hindsight, knowing now what I know about like manipulating sodium and hydration and all these kind of things. Like my meal on the show day, meal one, I was just told to like go to the breakfast buffet and just have some food, right? And but the thing is, because it was COVID, there wasn't a breakfast buffet. It was just like a kind of small, like you order a few bits. And I didn't have a fucking clue what I was supposed to eat. after all this time dieting, it just messed with my head. So that was partly why, for me, working with Cooper was why I wanted to work with him, because I was like, I want someone to tell me to the absolute minutiae how to run my day, and I'm glad I did, because I learned so much doing that. Yeah. And then the next prep, I've again, like yourself, I think it probably spiraled my neuroticism a bit too much, and I needed to take that wee break off. But no, it's good that you have these lessons, and I think it's funny because I've also had Taylor on, who's an ex Cuba client as well.
Yeah,
and I think all of us have obviously clearly learned a huge amount from Cuba, and it's been pretty kind of cool seeing his impact on the UK bodybuilding scene. Because it's funny with some guys, and I don't, you'll probably get it to some extent, but some guys I'll say that I've worked with Cuba, and they want to immediately spout off all this kind of negative stuff, and sometimes I think he's got a bit of a bad rep. But I really struggle with that, because while he's definitely not everyone's cup of tea, and I think everyone shouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. I think that's a sign that you're doing something right, personally. I think what he does for creating athletes is amazing.
I agree, mate. And obviously I'm going to be a little bit biased, right? Because I am still with Cuba.
Yeah.
However, I don't think there's anyone that has worked with Cuba who, whether they maybe had a falling out with him towards the end and disagreed with him over certain things, and it didn't end well, let's say, right? Whether that happened or not, because that does tend to happen sometimes, not just with Cuba, but with plenty of other coaches.
Oh yeah.
Whether that's happened or not, I don't think any of those guys can actually sit there and say that they didn't learn a lot from Cuba. And I think most importantly, I think he teaches a lot of people what bodybuilding at a high level actually looks like. And on your podcast with Taylor, one thing that he mentioned, he's worked with a couple of different coaches, and he'll take really good elements from one coach, he'll take really good elements from another coach. I like this, I don't really like this, and he kind of merges all that together with himself and his personality, and then that's how he coaches. And that's obviously the perfect way to coach anyway, in my opinion, right? I think that's a great thing to do, take all the good elements from other people. But there's good and there's bad with every single coach, right? And the good with Cuba, I think everyone will say the same thing. He does really hold you to a high standard. You learn a lot. And I think a lot of bodybuilders who have worked with him, I feel like he doesn't really get the credit he deserves, mate, either, because look at the amount of guys, really good amateurs, who have left Cuba and then end up going to a different coach and win their pro card in 6 months.
You can think of quite a few.
I can just rattle off a good couple of names there who I can see, that has happened, that has happened, So I get it. I can see why people maybe wouldn't continue to work with him because of certain things. But I feel like he doesn't get the props he deserves in a way as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, it's normal for people to leave coaches. It's normal because people change, but also people just want to do different stuff, and it doesn't necessarily purely reflect on the coach themselves. And as I say, maybe there are bits that they're not happy with, but the reality is, does that perfect coach exist forever as well? People might feel like you got the perfect coach for 6 months, but 2 years down the line, could you pick apart things that you don't like? Probably in anyone. If people are leaving, people choose to leave Hani Rambod. It's a normal part of the game. But anyway, just so this doesn't just turn into the Cubicast, which is totally not what it's supposed to be. How is your off season going? Because I know you're pretty deep in it now.
Good, mate. Good, really, really well. I'm extremely happy with where I'm at the moment. I think, I took my checking pictures yesterday. I was 107 kilos. And I started prep last year at 108.8, and I did a little side-by-side comparison of the two photos. And it's not the fairest comparison because it's cruise versus fucking full-blown, taking loads of drugs. But there's a huge difference, and I'm really happy with that, So I'm looking forward to getting back up to that 108, 109 mark and kind of seeing where I'm at. And I still have 11 weeks left in this push-up, So I reckon I'll be starting prep around 4 or 5 kg heavier than I was last time, but leaner. And I think in 18 months... off, that's pretty decent, so super happy with how it's going, man. I feel good, I think over the last year or so I've definitely maybe discovered what agrees with me and what doesn't in terms of drugs. I'm sure that happens a lot of bodybuilders after a certain time in the game, and not only that, other areas as well, mate, like with my nutrition, right? Or with my training. You know, we're constantly learning in this game, but I feel like I know now when I need to make certain tweaks to my own nutrition to, you know, make my digestion a little bit better once I get to a certain stage so that my appetite doesn't go sooner than it needs to be. You know what I mean? I think in the past I've been guilty of like, no, have to follow the plan 100%, you know, like Kuba's giving me this meal plan, he's giving me this training plan, like this is it, and I follow it religiously. I feel like when I first started with him and I didn't know a fucking thing, I was happy to do that. But over time, I'm like, say to him, like, oh, mate, look, I'm putting in a slice of sourdough here instead of 40 oats because if I eat 125 grams of oats every single morning, I'm going to struggle with the rest of my meals. You know, just making small tweaks yourself to make things easier. Same with my training. If I'm not liking something now, I'm just like, you know, I'm not doing this. I'm finding the substitution. Like, this feels better for me. And I just do it. And I'm happier for doing those things as well. You know, so I think I'm enjoying things a lot more having that sort of approach. I was kind of maybe scared to do that before, like make any changes or suggest any changes, but I feel like now things are starting to click a little bit more across the board, and the body seems to be responding very, very well, mate. So I'm happy. I'm happy with how it's going. I'm looking forward to prepping. I'm way off where I need to be yet, but I think, mate, looking back at last season and last year, I wasn't fully happy with how I looked on stage, and that's my own fault. I think this is like stress and a lot of those factors. I don't want to be that guy who's like, it was the stress, you know, it was the stress.
It makes a massive difference just then to do it again with like myself. Like I remember I did 3 shows when I was with Cuba, and the third show was going to be the best one. I feel like the lead up to it, I was looking absolutely nails, and but like a lot fuller, and it was going to be the best showing. And on the day, I just had, due to personal reasons, so much stress happened that it just completely fell apart. It didn't completely fall apart. I still looked good. But like compared to what it was on track to be, it was absolutely fucking soul destroying. The only thing that happened was I was just stressed out in my pit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's massively underrated, those kind of small variables, and it leaves that itch unscratched. You've got that like, what if it could have been a bit different. So what do you think? What do you think this off season has, like, what's gone better with this compared to the ones in the past? Because I mean, looking at the program, obviously time's a big factor.
Yeah,
you're always going to just get better. But like the size that you're carrying now, in the condition you're carrying now, is like it's impressive in my opinion. What do you think caused that?
So I think a couple of different factors, mate. I think in this most recent push-up, definitely been a lot more patient with things. I know a lot of people are going to have a lot of different opinions on this. Oh no, you need to get big in your off seasons, bro. You need to eat. I think that definitely does work for some people, right? These guys who can grow quite quickly, these freaks, etc. For me, that has never worked. I've always noticed, mate, when I get beyond a certain body composition, everything goes downhill. My sleep, my digestion, my training performance, everything. Don't know what it is, but I'm naturally quite a skinny guy. Like I always was. Like I was never, ever out of shape my whole entire life. Like if I showed you a picture of the fattest I ever was, you'd say like, that's not even fat. You know what I mean? So like I think my natural set point for where I sit is quite low. So when I am leaner, I just respond better, mate. So like I'm staying quite lean now, yes, and people might say, oh, that's too lean. You know, you should be pushing on a little bit more. You'd probably make more progress if you did. But I've obviously done it both ways, mate. I'm fucking doing this long enough now to know what works for me. And obviously that approach is in line with what Kuba thinks works the best.
Yeah.
But it's not because Kuba thinks that works the best. It's genuinely because I think it works the best as well for me, right? And one of the biggest things I've seen that was really an eye-opener for me post-show was that I think maybe because the season didn't go how I anticipated it to go in terms of like, not my placings necessarily, but maybe like my look that I wasn't fully happy with and how stressed I got towards the end. I kind of cruised through the prep. I was loving it. I was really enjoying the process. I was super confident in how I was looking. Then my head just went me. Like in the lead up to show, in between the shows, my head was just gone. I don't know what the fuck happened. So definitely something I have to sort out for the next time. But yeah, I was kind of, you know, maybe I lost the love for it a little bit, I'd say. I kind of hit a little bit of a lull when I was post-show. I wouldn't say like post-show blues or anything, but I was kind of like, I was a bit deflated. I'd taken a 3-year off season And when I say, mate, I was on it during that 3 years, like I was on it. You know, you think like when people take a year off, right? Obviously that sense of urgency, like, oh, one push up and I'm straight back into prep, so everything needs to be nailed. Like I had 3 years off stage, but I was like fucking on it. You know what I mean? Like I was so strict with absolutely everything, like my routine, my sleep. Even when I moved to Manchester, a lot of my friends were going out. They're going out for meals all the time. You know, they were maybe staying up past their bedtime or whatever. But I was just like a monk. Like I was locked in, like fucking 99% of the time. So because of that, I thought the outcome was going to be a little bit better. And I think that kind of maybe upset me a little bit. And post show, I was got a little bit like, oh, not what's the point, but I got a little bit, I need to step back here. Mentally, I need to take a step back. So I obviously still ate all my meals and I was still killing myself in the gym and I was still doing all of those things. My routine was the same, you know, but I kind of like mentally switched off a little bit. You know, I didn't have like this really locked in tunnel vision mindset, bodybuilding. I kind of wasn't thinking about it as much. I was kind of relaxing. I was having a couple more off-plan meals than I normally would. And I'll be honest, I was eating like shit. I was eating like Five Guys McDonald's. Normally I wouldn't have gone near those things. It would have always just been sushi, you know, that was it, the cleaner stuff. And I probably had like an off-plan meal like every single week, you know, and like that's so unlike me because I used to go 2 months straight without an off-plan meal. So kind of allowed myself to just take a step back, relax, have a little bit of flexibility. And I just pushed my body weight up really quickly, mate, and trained hard. And I did make a lot of progress during that time. But then I looked at Mark Hodson, who absolutely suffered post-show, kept himself as lean as possible for as long as possible, was like very, very patient with his food and what he was doing. And I had to cut my push-up short, right? I had to pull out 18 weeks into the push-up because my appetite was fucked, digestion was fucked. And he ended up, post-show, he got a run of about 36 weeks or something. Like just pushing up constantly. And he made crazy progress. And he's one of those guys, you look at his Instagram pictures and then you see him in person and it's just a whole different ballgame. Like Instagram does not do him justice whatsoever.
He's a big boy, like.
He looks very impressive on Instagram, especially lately if you've seen his pictures.
Yeah.
When you see him in person, mate, like the way he looks now and the density and the tissue, the muscle he's carrying. But I obviously competed with him. We traveled for the shows. We stayed together in the same Airbnbs. I've seen what he looked like when he was on stage at the PC Ireland. And I've seen what he looked like such a short period of time later. And I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. And like, he didn't change anything crazy, mate. Like there was no change to the food or the drugs or he added this magic thing in or whatever, you know. He was just very patient. And I kind of seen that progress that he made at that time. And I knew I kind of maybe, I wouldn't say I fucked my push-up, but I could have done better, you know. And I knew myself I could have done better. And I said it to Kuba as well. I was like, I'll hold my hands up and I'll say here, I could have done a better job and I will do a better job the next time. So when we did that mini cut, that was 10 weeks long. Off the back of that, ever since, I've just been fucking like as on it, more on it than I've ever been, you know, and I've been very locked in. And I think having that time post-show to mentally take the step back and not think about bodybuilding. I didn't have bodybuilding on my mind maybe as much as I would have the 3 full years prior to that. I think that like reignited my love for it, you know? Like it really, really did. And I'm so zoned in and locked in again. And I feel like because now I'm like loving the process so much and I've gotten that spark back, I think that's probably the biggest contributing factor to the progression. You know, that staying more patient with my food, pushing things up slowly, and just like the mindset and where things are at. Cycle wise as well, mate, I do think that makes a big difference. Like I don't go near trainer MPP anymore. Just don't. It ruins my sleep. 100 meg just ruins my sleep. When I'm sleeping well, when I'm sleeping 7 to 8 hours per night and getting good quality deep sleep, I will just continually progress all the time, you know, and not have any issues. But when I don't, when my sleep is poor, obviously when your sleep is poor, you're not going to progress. But for me, when I have poor sleep, it drives my anxiety up through the roof. And then I'm just like negative emotions. And then, you know, you just kind of unravel a little bit. So, yeah, keeping the cycle design nice and smart is definitely a big factor too. And, you know, as much as we don't want to admit it as bodybuilders, mate, more drugs, you know.
Yeah. It does make a difference. It's funny, you're one of many people I've now chatted to on this who've talked about not using train as much, which is, I think, probably always a good message to share with the audience. And like, I'm actually someone that like I quite get on the train. I've just put it back in for the last 4 weeks of my my push up just to like slightly recomp things. But it's not. it's not this must-have thing. Like the first episode I did was with Andy Scott, who turned pro, and he was saying that this is the first prep he did. He did not touch tren the entire time, and it's the prep that he turned pro in because he could sleep and he felt like he could stay bigger and stay fuller and be more recovered and all that because of it. But
it's funny you say that because me and Kuba have already decided that for my next prep that we're not going to go near it. You know.
I was chatting to Hilly, and I'm not sure I won't at all, but definitely the next diet I do that's like a assisted diet. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to work out, but I want to give it a try, and I think I'm probably going to use DHB instead, which is kind of similar but different. But just to see if like, is it going to really make a difference? Like not doing it, I think probably the benefit to sleep is. I'm sure I'm like yourself, you know, you're when it gets to a certain point in prep, like waking up at like 3 a.m. is just, it's not great, man.
I don't know if you've seen my last prep, but towards the end of prep, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I was waking up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I had to send Kuba my fasted check-in shots. And once it gets to like September, mate, it's not dark or it's not bright until 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. So I'd be up and I'd be sitting there for 6 or 7 hours waiting to take my check-in shot so I could eat my first meal, and that actually kind of drove me insane. Like I think that's why my head went a little bit towards the end of prep as well. And I partly think this could have been because when we dropped my test down and my DHT was so high, I think my estrogen was pretty tanked, and I think that's why I was waking up so early and why I maybe felt the way I did. I think I've discovered after looking at my bloods that like it doesn't really take that much for my estrogen to go down a little. Like I could be running 500-600 tests and you know a little bit of primo, and my estrogen be sitting not bottom end of the range. Like like if this is the middle and this is the end, I'm kind of down here, and I'm like I kind of want this to be a little bit higher to be gaining more muscle here. And I've noticed when I don't have it very low, I feel way better. So I think running like fucking 200 tests and 2 grams of DHT for the last couple of weeks into the show, it just did not agree with me whatsoever. And I don't think it agreed with my physique either. I was drier, but I was so flat, mate. So flat looking. I lost all my pop. And I learned a lot about my physique, obviously, last season. But yeah, there's a lot of things I think I'll change this prep this time around. But with the tren as well, mate, like 100 mega tren, anytime I've taken it, I don't notice a difference in, like, I don't 2 weeks later go, I'm way stronger, I'm way harder, wow, this has made such a difference. If anything, I don't notice anything at all. I know some people do. I know some people put it in and visually they can kind of see it, but I have never experienced that with tren ever. If anything, I put it in and my sleep gets worse, and that's the only thing I notice.
Well, I mean, I talked at the start and said my first prep did some silly things with drugs. If you want to see a difference tren makes, I was in it. I think at the end we put it up to 600. Right? If you want to see the difference, it does make a difference. Then, if you also want to feel like you're not yourself, that's how you do it. Like you'll totally lose your marbles. Like, it wasn't for very long, thankfully, but yeah. But again, I think there's some good messages in there, especially with all of this is so person dependent. Like, and you don't know until you've done it. Again, messages I keep kind of coming back to on these podcasts is like you have to do it yourself, and we can all have these grand ideas about what's optimal or what's going to be like the best thing to, whether it's cut fat or maintain size or build strength or whatever. But you got to do it and then see and run your bloods and see how you feel. And sometimes it's not even about the blood. Sometimes it's just how you feel in yourself. Because I'm the opposite. I aromatize really, really easily. So I have to have certain precautions in there. I always have to have a decent amount of a DHT in there. Like at the moment, I'm running a higher test. I'm actually using an AI. Not very much, but I've got it in there. But also, I know what it feels to go on the other end where you crash your estrogen, and that is a soul destroying experience. It's again, you feel like your personality shifts. It's pretty weird. But yeah, I know you've been saying that. I saw in your story you're experimenting with a bit of higher test at the moment. How do Do you think that is kind of contributing a bit to it? Is that because you know you can get away with it without aromatizing? Is it intentionally bringing estrogen up?
You know what, mate? I actually thought I was someone who aromatized quite a lot, because I remember when I first started gear, you know, when you're just going like your test only cycle and stuff, and I kind of get like a little bit of acne or whatever. I remember like maybe the second cycle I'd ever done, it was like 250 tests, 100 NPP, 150 mast or something like that, right? It was some sort of cycle like that. And I remember getting my bloods back and my estrogen was like 450 or something. And I was like, oh my God, I must aromatize so much. And I was getting little bits of acne and stuff. But I didn't even know if the gear I was using back then was that good. You know, I think that could have been a factor as well. And then as I was working with Kuba, I was always quite scared maybe to have the tests go higher in case I got side effects. And I had this, you know, idea in my mind that I did aromatize. But then when you're getting your bloods done all the time, mate, your bloods are coming back, you're running certain dosages, you can see certain things, you're like, you know, this looks okay. And up until last prep, mate, like I'd only run my test up to 500 milligrams, right? And I'd been taking gear for nearly 4 years at that stage. Yep. So like, I didn't really push it. You know, even I have a video on my YouTube channel. I'm not sure if you've seen it or not. It's 30-month off-season review. And it was before I started prep last year. And I ran through my entire cycle history, like just out there in the open, right? And like, I'm sure a lot of people probably thought I was lying, but like my dosages were super low for super long. I stayed under a gram for the first year. 2 years actually. I stayed under a gram, like literally. Yeah. And then after that, it was like third year or whatever. It was like between, you know, a gram and 2 grams, and then it was just prep where I went above that 2 gram mark. And obviously prep, you've got all the orders, you've got fucking, you know, high dose, so that's always going to be the case. But yeah, I'd never really kind of ran the test higher, and it was something I wanted to do. It was something I kind of said at the Cuba that I wanted to do and just experiment with. And then when we did start bumping it up, I just wasn't seeing any side effects at all. And actually, in actual fact, mate, I was feeling better. Because when I was doing cycles where I was like 300, 400 tests, or, you know, 400, maybe do 500 tests for the last 6 to 8 weeks, I just always kind of felt a little bit crappy, a little bit lethargic or whatever, because the DHT was so high. Now, I wouldn't say my DHT is low now. It's still pretty high, but my test is way higher. And I feel fucking great, mate. Like, once I get beyond that, like 500, 600 milligram mark, like I fucking feel unbelievable. You know, and it doesn't affect anything. I don't get any sides. If anything, it's been better. It's been more beneficial for me. I actually think I feel better mentally. I'm sleeping better. It's weird, you know. It's like most people probably think the opposite would happen, but again, it just goes to show the individual differences that people can have. Like, I don't aromatize, so it would seem, because test is quite high at the moment. So yeah,
but I mean, I think probably getting that balance, you know, the like running whatever DHT to test balance probably says a lot about it. But I mean, I agree. Like, my last few kind of end of push-ups have been with tests that I think it was 750 and the one right before prep, and then I'm on 800 at the moment, and it feels good. I feel great. Like, mentally, I feel great. I feel in the gym like I could run through a wall. Like,
feeling it.
Yeah, the aggression's there. Not in some kind of dickhead way. Like, I think people use, I mean, you know, I'm sure you're the same, like, people tend to use gear as an excuse to act like a bell end. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in a, like, productive aggression way in the gym, you know, being more assertive, being more confident. It all kind of, and as we were chatting about in the stories, being more hairy as well is definitely part of it.
Yeah, for sure, mate. I actually got Chloe through my back there yesterday, just so the hairs weren't poking over in the podcast here. But yeah, mate, I'm growing hairs now in places I didn't even fucking knew existed. Even like my nose hair and my ear hair, mate. I'm like, where are all these hairs coming from? I've never had these before. I'm 28 years old and now fucking things are popping out of everywhere, you know what I mean? So yeah, but yeah, mate, I think, again, I did leave that until last when I was talking about what I think has led to my progression over the last couple of months, because I do think it is last in terms of, like, you know, everything else that we spoke about, but it still does make a big difference. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, the drugs don't work, and like pushing it up a little bit more when you get to a certain point doesn't work. I do think you need to kind of earn that right, and you know, build up a certain fucking base before you do start pushing dosages, you know, as I have done. I feel like maybe I probably should have started pushing it up a little bit more, maybe a little bit earlier than I did. I feel like I've kind of held off for a long period of time. But look, at least I have room to push from here, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think nailing all the other variables that like I know that you do, and for people watching this, do go and check out Darragh's YouTube. Like you're very transparent with them, but you definitely show how you are super on it, right? I mean, that's how on it I like to think of myself as. But like, I'm not going 4 weeks without an off-plan meal. I'm telling you that right now in an off season. But like, all power to you. But I think that adds into it. Even if, as you were talking about with, say, blood work, your diet makes an impact to your blood work. If you're eating super clean all the time, like I see it in myself. Like my estrogen signs spike if I have some horrific meal. I'll have 2 days where like my nipples are definitely a bit puffy and I'm holding some extra water, and it's a sign of I'm definitely just like slightly, like there's definitely some aromatization going on there. But if you are just on it, then you're limiting all these things and you're reducing your need to, you know, do all this complicated shit to mitigate it. Just be on it with everything else.
I think I'm very conscious of that as well. I think that's probably why I'm as on it with those things as I am, because like, you know, people think bodybuilders aren't health conscious, you know, and people, you're filling yourself up with all them steroids, blah, blah, blah. But like, I'm like extremely health conscious, like I always have been. Before I got into bodybuilding as well, it was like my primary concern, how am I going to do this the best way possible? And I'm still very mindful of that as well. Keeping myself healthy and having longevity. And I'll be honest as well, mate, like there's been times where like I've gotten my bloods done as I've started to escalate things, and I'm like, fuck, this is going to be the one. These are going to be the ones that come back bad. And like, I don't mean to brag, but like, I haven't gotten like a bad set of bloods like ever. You know what I mean? Like my blood work has always been pretty good, and I'm always waiting and expecting things to start to slip. And if anything, as I've been doing this longer, I'm nearly more on it with everything, even though I've ran cycles with higher dosages. Sometimes I'm getting the blood work back and it's better, mate. You know what I mean? Which doesn't make sense. It's backwards to me, but it goes to show that the diet does have a huge impact, like a massive impact, and lifestyle factors too. When my sleep has been better, I get better blood work back, lo and behold. You know, I've had push-ups where my sleep has been really poor for the entire duration, and my diet might have still been good, but I get my blood work back, and there's certain things that are like maybe not where I would have wanted them to be, you know? When I'm sleeping good, lifestyle is good, diet is good, blood work is better, you know? And it makes sense, like it's completely illogical, but yeah, I think the bloods I got back in and around Christmas time, mate, it was the first time I'd ever seen my LDL out of range. It wasn't crazy, it was like 3.1 or 3.2 or something, but I had never seen my LDL out of range ever, and I was like, oh fuck. But I knew I'd been taking the piss with the diet for the last couple of months. And that was 3.1 or 3.2, whatever it was, after a 6-week cruise. I got my bloods retested there a couple of weeks ago, 12 weeks on cycle, and my LDL was 2.14. And that was actually the lowest I've seen it in the last 2 years. And that was partly because my body fat levels were lower, but was also diet as well, you know? So like, I know when I get these results back, and it's almost like proof to me, it's like, yeah, it's tough. It might be difficult for a lot of people to like go long periods of time without an off-plan meal, but I'm like, look, this is the healthiest approach for me. And to be honest, it's the one I feel the best with. I know mentally as well, if I'm a little bit healthier, I'm like, okay, I can accept the trade-offs that come with pushing things a little bit higher here. You know, the more I push things, it's like the more I feel I need to be on it with those things. So yeah, you know, I think for me it's a must.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I've had exactly the same experience. The only time I ever got bad blood work was after my first prep, and literally every single time I've ever done blood work since then, which is normally maybe anywhere from 2 to 4 times a year, depending on what year it's been, every single one is better than the last one. It doesn't matter, and every single time doses have escalated, but it's because I've been more on it with the diet. I've held a better body composition. I've been even more on top of it with my health supplementation, which is, you know, I think very, very important if you're going to do what we're going to do is take the health supplementation.
I want to actually give a big shout out, plug here to the JP Heart Care supplement, because that's a new supplement. It's not super new. I think they introduced it maybe like a year ago or maybe a little bit longer. But I always had like the omega-3 fish oil, the Vital Support, the Love Heart, and all the other like vitamin D3 and whatever in. But the only thing I changed from like in between when I got that bad set of bloods to the really good set of bloods was I added that in. Because when that came out, I was like, there's another thing. I was like, I don't need that. That's probably just a little extra. But I was like, no, I need to do everything I can to bring my LDL back down here. And that was the only one thing I actually implemented that I'd never had in before. And then I got the best LDL back I've ever had back. So I'm kind of like, these supplements really do work. You know what I mean? Like they really do. So like you have to fucking take those supplements. But I think the supplements and the diet, they both kind of come together.
Yes.
Pop a couple of fish oils after you eat your Five Guys and be like, cancels each other out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a trinity of the three all working at the same time. It's quite funny. I talked to Kirsty about it, or she brings it up a lot. She finds it so interesting with, again, you just described it, but when you are as on it as we are and we choose to be, you see the small differences and the small variable tweaks actually working. And you whether it's a supplementation or whether it's adding an extra set for delts or whatever, like, if you're not nailing everything, like, fucking who knows what's happening. But when you're that on it, you really notice the difference. Like, I noticed, I changed my training a few weeks ago, added a chest movement onto my shoulder day. Yeah. So made it kind of a push session, we only ran it 1 week. But the impact that having that extra chest press had on the rest of the session, it completely knocked it out. And so we're like, we need to pull it back because I'm just not recovering in time to get that in. But I never would have been able to do that if it wasn't because I was so on top of everything else. I wasn't nailing every recovery variable, and diet wasn't 100% on it.
You can notice things over time the longer you're doing it, though. I'm the same, Hamish. Like, we have arms in at the start of legs, right? Like triceps, bicep, triceps, tricep, right? And I've actually had to pull the tricep work because my pressing 2 days later for push isn't going up. And I think the way I realised it was I was down training in Derby one day, and I just, for whatever reason, like I was down there training legs, and I just was driving up and down. I was like, I didn't have time to skip the arms, right? Not something I would normally do at all, right? But I was like, the leg work's getting done here as a priority. And then I went in 2 days later, and I was like up 2 reps on most of my presses, and I was like, didn't do triceps 2 days ago, So for a certain period of time, like at the beginning of the off season, maybe when I was like, I don't want to say a little bit weaker, but you progress quite a lot as you're going cycle, right? I was getting away with it for the first while, and as I started to get really strong and I'm starting to get a little bit more battered, I couldn't get away with that volume anymore. I've had to actually pull it down. So now I'm just doing the biceps. I'm not doing the triceps at the start of legs. And that's something I've just like made as an adjustment myself, because I realized, I'd rather my pressing going up now than my fucking triceps. My triceps have gained a good amount of size. I need a bigger chest more than I need, an extra little bit of tricep, I reckon. So yeah.
Again, that's that autonomy of you making that call. Obviously, you're working with Kuba, and not Kuba's writing the plan, but that autonomy, I again said some other things, but you have to earn that. You have to put in the time to earn the ability to say that, because again, if our guys listen to this, I know some of the guys that listen to it are kind of early on in their journey. Like, yes, have those conversations with your coach, and that is important, but if sometimes you do just need to follow the fucking plan, and then eventually you'll get to the point where it's like, as you were saying, you could swap oats for sourdough, or you could, remove a set here or add a set here, but you need to be very, very in tune with that.
Exactly. It goes back to like exactly what I was saying earlier, and I think for the first maybe 2 years or whatever that I was working with Kuba, I was very much follow the plan, learn, listen, because to be fair, there was a lot of things I might have said to him and he would say, no, do this or whatever because of that, and then I'd do exactly what he says, and then it would work, and I'd be like, okay, it clicks with me, like I get it, you know what I mean? And over time, as I've gotten a little bit more advanced, and I've maybe learnt my body a little bit more, etc., I think now he does give me a little bit more, I wouldn't say flexibility, but he knows if I'm coming to him and I'm just like, look, man, I'm 3 or 4 sessions into this rotation and I'm just not getting along well with this exercise. He knows now, he doesn't like ask me for an execution clip, right? Or say like whatever. Like he knows I'm saying that because it's just genuinely not clicking for me. He knows that now. Whereas like when I started with him when I was fat, 90 fucking 6 kilos, you know, he wasn't going to really take me seriously back then, was he? At least now as well, I'm in the gym as well, I'm training, you know, he knows things are on point. So you do have to earn that, don't you, mate? You know, I have clients, sometimes they say certain things to me, I'm like, mate, you've no way of knowing that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I literally have that with, I checked in a bunch of clients today, and yeah, I have that exact thing. There's one guy in particular who checked in who's been doing it for a long time. He's very, very on it. He is, you know, I trust his feedback. And if he says, you know, for like at the moment he was asking to pull back volume on a certain body part, and I was like, yeah, we can absolutely do that. On the other hand, you know, you get some guys who are being like, oh, can we do
more volume?
Yeah, and it's like, no, mate, you just keep doing this right now, and you know, I think that's probably the best. But so just to steer the conversation, I want to know kind of what. So you're doing your off season at the moment. I'm right in saying that you're planning on prepping soonish.
Yeah, I'm starting prep on the 30th of December, so just before New Year's. So that'd be a good way to ring in the new year with my chicken rice and broccoli, no sauce. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that, mate. Because again, like I know Christmas is like a big thing for a lot of people, and this isn't me trying to be like hardcore or anything, but like doesn't fucking bother me. Like you know what I mean? Like the prep, the food, all that other sort of stuff. I don't care. I'm really looking forward to getting cracking. So December 30th, which is a Monday, prep is starting. Then I'm aiming for like, obviously the calendars aren't out yet, right? But like I know the PCA Ireland is going to be like second weekend of May because it always is. So it's 20 weeks until the first show, and then after that I'll probably look to do a 2 Bros regional and maybe a pro qualifier. I'll see. I think the pro qualifier that I want to do though, the Ireland one, the Ireland show muscle contest, that might be before the 2 Bros regional, so it might be a little bit of backwards of a timeline, you know. Yeah. So I'm kind of like where I'm at right now, mate. I'm like, if I'm not winning like my classic class at a regional, like I'm not doing a pro qualifier, you know what I mean? Like I'm not fucking spending a fortune to go over to Spain, do the Impro, if I'm going to be getting, you know, fucking second or third call outs realistically. Like I'm just not going to do that. It makes no sense to me. Yeah, it'd be a great experience, it'd be a cool holiday, but I don't care about that. I do to an extent, but yeah, I wasn't originally meant to prep this early. I was meant to aim for the tail end of the year. I was going to do 3 push-ups and take a full 2 years off between shows. But I think, again, for what we've spoken about earlier, just having that itch to maybe nail the prep down a little bit more, nail my look down and be happy with that and learn my body a little bit more, because I still feel like I have a lot of room to do that. I still feel like there's a lot of experimentation that needs to be done for me personally to kind of figure some things out, and a lot of things maybe in the last prep that we were going to try that we didn't end up trying that I would like to try now, you know. Like I've never done diuretics even since, you know. Experiment with that. Is that going to make me flatter, or is it just going to make me drier and more peeled? I don't fucking know, you know. We were going to maybe run some Anadrol into one of the shows, we didn't, you know. I've never done any of those things. It's been pretty basic, so yeah, try a couple more things while there's no real pressure at stake, if you want to say, because like even if I ruin a look at 1 or 2 shows this year, at least I know, okay, that doesn't work. Like that's a big part of bodybuilding for me as well. I want to try shit, mate. You know, I don't want to be like just a one trick, one peak fucking pony. Like, important for me as a bodybuilder, important for me as a coach as well. You know, to kind of learn these things and do these things. So yeah, that's my rough plan, mate. But I'm really looking forward to it. Mentally, I'm in a lot better, more confident position, having dusted off the cobwebs last year. You know, and I think because there's no expectation now, and because I know I'm not where I need to be, it's just going to be about like enjoying it that little bit more, and seeing where the results land. I'll probably end up doing better, mate, because I don't expect to do better. You know what I mean?
Everything you've just said, that was how I felt going into my last prep. And it was just way better. And I was kind of something that I was chatting with Taylor about the other week was I think probably everyone needs to do a prep that kind of sucks at some point. I know you said you coasted through a lot of it, but obviously things went a bit astray at the end. I think you need to have done that to then learn those lessons and then come back. Because normally, if you're at that point where things are going a bit mental, it probably is because you're absolutely peeled and you probably are super locked in and you've done all the things you need to do, but it's just the head that's not right. And then you can fix all those things going into the next one. And yeah, and experimenting with peaks is fun. I was the same. My last prep was the first time I'd used a diuretic. And we did experiment with it, so we did a mock peak a couple of weeks before. So, I mean, I know some people think like diuretics is like this Hail Mary, but like, if you practice it, it doesn't have to be a Hail Mary. I mean, you can time it with the right food and see how it's going to react and all that kind of thing. And I also ended up doing an Andro before one of the shows as well. But that was a bit of a Hail Mary. I was doing a show on a Saturday and a Sunday. The Saturday, I was absolutely peeled, but maybe a bit flat. And it was going to be the last show the next day. And I was just like, fuck it, let's just like see what happens kind of thing. So threw an Andro and a McDonald's in there.
I think me having my prep a little bit like more planned out is going to be important as well. Because like, last year, I really wanted to get on stage. I wanted to do as many shows as possible, this and that. But I did the MK Classic and I was on stage 7 or 8 times because I did novice bodybuilding, I did heavyweight bodybuilding, and I did Classic Class C, and then I was on for the overall and Classic as well. So like, I was on off stage. I did my posing routine fucking 3 or 4 times. Like I was fucked after that day. You know, I think by the time we got off stage, it was like maybe 12:30. And I'd been backstage at 8:30 in the morning. Like I was 4 hours on and off stage, standing up, sitting down, all that other sort of shit. And I didn't really eat that much food. And then next morning I did the PCA in Manchester. So like I literally drove a week in the morning straight to the like straight back on stage pretty much after like 2 meals. So I just couldn't recover after that, mate. I was actually bollocksed in between. Yeah. We pushed for a little bit further in between shows to the Ireland show, and like by the time I got to Derry for the Ireland show, I was a broken man, you know. Funny enough, I was like maybe 1.5 kilos lighter on stage, but weight, but like just not as fresh looking, you know.
Yeah, that does. Yeah, I mean, these small things make a difference, and yeah, just because you're lighter doesn't mean you're actually going to look harder or better. It's the whole thing is a bit of a mindfuck, but it's an interesting game. I think all power to you for doing multiple classes at Two Bros. Like, I kind of have so many mixed feelings myself about the fact that they offer that. Like, in a way, I think it's really cool because for someone like yourself, you get to try classic and bodybuilding and see where you sit. But also, man, that's a long day, and I'm sure you've seen it yourself. See some guys who enter a lot of classes, like a lot of classes, especially if they're like masters guys, and they'll do like, I've genuinely seen a guy do, like beginners, medium, beginners, novice, and open in bodybuilding, and do like beginners class. Like we're talking like 6. Like must have spent. I can't even imagine how much he spent on registration for that day, but like.
The thing that I don't get
is a long day.
The guys that do this for medals. You know, there was one guy, I'm not going to name names, right? But he did the MK. It wasn't the MK Classic. He did one of the Two Bros shows that I was at, that I was spectating at like 2 years ago. And this guy is an absolute veteran in the game, all right? And he came in and he did the novice category, and he was obviously going to win the thing. This guy's a super heavyweight bodybuilder. Came in,
yes,
novice
I think, yeah.
And I was like, mate, what are you fucking doing? You're just taking away from actual novices' abilities to do really well, have a good day, and win a medal, right? And like last year, obviously I was going to do classic and bodybuilding to kind of like see where I stood, where I fit in both of those categories. And I did novice bodybuilding because I was a novice. I'd actually never competed as a bodybuilder before, so all the 2 PCA shows I did novice bodybuilding there, right? I was like, this is the year I'm going to be a novice. Never going to do a novice again after that. Like I will never do a novice category ever again. And I did the heavyweights, and like doing the heavyweights, entering that extra class, that wasn't for me to be like, can I get an extra medal here? That was to be like, right, how far, where do I stand? I think I actually weighed in as well, man. Or like 2 days before, I was light heavyweight. Like I was a light heavyweight on stage as a heavyweight. Like height-wise, I'm probably a super heavyweight, right? So like I have a lot of size to gain. I'm going to do the heavyweights again this year. But I like, oh, fucking, I'm gonna get smoked, mate. You know, like I'm 6 foot, and I'll probably be, maybe this year I'll be like 95 kilos on stage, maybe like
Yeah.
95, 96 kg, best case scenario. So we'll see. I was 90.7 on stage at the MK last year, and that was 2 kilos up from my lowest weight. You know,
Right.
so even for classic, my classic physique cap from my lowest weight at prep last year before I started carbon up for that show, I had 10.75 kg to gain for the cap.
Yeah, that's absolutely loads. But yeah, I think I agree with you on the. I really like what you said about the fact that you did your novice year and that was your novice year, because that's exactly what I did. I was like, doesn't, because technically, for anyone who doesn't know, novice bodybuilding, it depends on the federation. Some in two bros, I'm pretty sure it's that you've not competed with two bros before. Is that big? I think so.
I think
Something like that.
I think with two bros, it's that you've never came first place in any category before.
Yeah, I know. PCA is that you've not placed top three in a final, I think. Or anyway, it's a bit wishy washy, and if you pay attention, you do see some people milk that novice for quite a while, and I think, technically it's within the rules, but but why?
In the unspoken rules of bodybuilding, though, it's frowned upon, you know.
Yeah, and again, the reason I'm saying it is just like, if people are thinking about these things, that people do notice as well. Like, it's pretty obvious at a certain point. People notice, and just do your novice year and then move away and just be whatever you're going to be. But more interestingly, so it's going to be classic that you're entering. I think that's a really good call. You're coming back to classic. I know you did classic last year as well, but I think your frame does look good as a classic bodybuilder. I think you've got a classic structure. Now, it might not be, it's not like a Keon classic structure, but it's like a white guy classic structure. I think it's an Arnold-esque classic structure.
This is the thing for me, Hamish, right, is that I kind of feel like I'm in between the classes, right? And I do probably think that structurally I am more of an open bodybuilder, but I think I still could turn pro in classic. So that's obviously
Yeah.
where I'm going to go, right? Because not that I'm in this like mad rush, or I have to turn pro as quick as I possibly can, but I stand more of a chance there, I think. And to be honest, I really like the classic physique category as well.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said I like it more than open bodybuilding, because I actually don't, right? But am I one of these guys who can grow and pack on tissue like super quick? I'm not, okay? So realistically, with me from where I'm at right now, like it could take me another 8 fucking years to turn pro as a fucking super heavyweight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where maybe in classic I could get there in the next 4 years or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's not that like I want to turn pro in classic to like get to the classic Olympia or whatever. I know that's not going to happen. I think even if I did turn pro as classic and I didn't belong there, I would still just continue to push and just be like, right, I'll just fucking be an open bodybuilder so I get on. You know what I mean? And one thing I've spoken about with Kuba is like, he was against me doing classic at first, and the only reason I was like, right, I'll just listen to him. I just need to gain size. I just need to compete again. It's grand. It's whatever. But like, so many people were saying it to me my last prep. Everyone is saying it to me. You're doing classic. You look really classic. You should do it. Blah blah. And I kind of thought I looked classic myself. You know,
Yeah.
I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to do this. Like, and like, I get where Kuba's coming from. He's like, yeah, look, you do well as an amateur in classic, but then beyond that, you're going to get smoked by guys who are actually classic. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough, mate. But I'm never fucking getting to the Olympia anyway. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
all I can see now in my mind, my main focus is I want to turn pro. I'm not thinking beyond that. I don't think many guys who want to turn pro think beyond that until they get there. Do you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
if I fucking turn pro, I'd be dead happy with it. If I turn pro in bikini, I'd be fucking happy with that. Like, you know what I mean? Turning pro is a big deal for a lot of us. So yeah, I think I'm going to aim for that. Like, that's what the goal is. And I have a lot more size, mate, to gain to fill out that cap. I know I do. And like a lot of guys who are turning pro and classic, look, they're sucking down to get to that cap. Like, they are, before they fill up. Like, even when I was fully loaded after my entire carb load last year, sitting at 90.7 the morning of the MK, like, that's still nearly 8 kg off my cap.
You got so much space to grow.
8 kilos
And
of tissue is crazy. That's almost fucking 20 pounds, like.
yeah, exactly. And how your body's holding it. As I do see what you mean. It's kind of in between bodybuilding and classic, but like, yeah, as you say, at an amateur level, it's like I'm not doing classic, right? My hips are not capable of me doing well in a classic class unless fucking no one turns up. But
Yeah.
you're not in that situation. Like, you do still have a good midsection. You have your arms are coming way up. It's got that kind of, as I say, kind of like white guy classic look, you know. And I think, I think it's pretty exciting. I think it's only a matter of time before you're rewarded for that. I mean, I know you did well. You won your class at the end.
I won my classmate, but there was one other guy there. Now, like, what I will say is, I think he was actually. Now, I think this was just before they changed the weight caps. So,
Yeah.
or wait, I was talking to him backstage. I thought he was going to beat me as well, mate, because he's way bigger than me. But I think he was actually at the top of the weight cap. Now, he could have been a little bit leaner. I do think I was a bit leaner than him. But I think he was like maxed out the weight cap, so he must have been like, again, fucking like 8 kg heavier than me, and I bet him. So yeah, there was only one guy there, but I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, oh, it's. I still think if there was more people there, I would have done better. Now I did look at a couple of other Two Bros Class C shows that year, and I was trying to place myself there, and I was like, I reckon I would have came third out of those 5 or 6 guys. You know, I reckon I might have came second there. You know, there was a lot of shows where I'd hold my hands up and say I fucking wouldn't have won that. I wouldn't have been winning my class. You know, I'm a realistic bodybuilder, man. Like, I'm not completely deluded. I have self belief, but like, I kind of know where I sit and where I stand. If anything, the longer I'm doing this, the more time I think it's going to take me to turn pro. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
But I still think I'm going to get there, you know? So we'll see. I suppose this year will be telling me. I'll kind of probably be in between filling my cap out. Like I said to you, if I was 90.7 on stage last year, if I stepped on stage at 95 kilos this year in Classic, I'd be buzzing with that. And that still gives me, what, fucking 3.5 kilos of tissue to gain. That's huge.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely massive.
So,
Condition makes a big difference. I did it this year. There were guys that were bigger than me on stage, and you just win on condition and small body parts. Like, your scale weight doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. Your scale weight isn't the defining feature at the end of the day. Even in your open classes, obviously different if you're in weight caps and doing like Two Bros kind of stuff, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's the look, and yeah, I'm excited to see the look that you bring. I think it's going to be a really cool thing. Actually, related to a question I did get, so if we're doing classic, is the stash and the mullet staying there?
yes, it is. My missus definitely does not like it, mate. It's not the freshest mullet now at the moment, but she likes just the buzz cut, kind of the buzz cut hair, the short hair. But once I committed to the mullet, mate, I knew I was like, right, this is gonna be a year at least of a thing. See, my only issue is, right, my hair is curly, but it's like this frizzy curl, so it's not growing long and curly and like very like together. You know, like a lot of these guys who have curly mullets. It's just like a big frizzy bushy mess. So I don't think I'm going to be able to. I had planned to get it, you know, really long and stuff like that, but I think it's just going to start looking worse if it gets to that stage. So I might just keep it short and tidy like it is now. But who knows, mate? In between shows, I might go for a little bit of a look switch up. I might shave the stash, shave the head, and just. To be honest, I'd rock the bald head, mate. I shaved like after I dyed my hair like 2 years ago. I dyed my hair blonde, and I got sick of it, so I just did a one all over, and I loved it. It was hard as nails, but like my hairline goes back here. It looks like it recedes, but I've always kind of had that hairline. So if I had like a nice, you know, Chris Williamson straight across the head hairline, I'd keep that short hair. But it just made me look like I was going bald. So yeah, I got rid of that and grew the hair back.
Mine's my hairline slowly departing. It's an emotional ride. It's not rapidly disappearing, but yeah, every year I'm like, oh, this is getting closer to a buzz cut.
One thing I have noticed, I don't know if you've seen my private story, but like, I'm in the shower these days and I'm washing my hair, and like there's clumps of hair coming out of my head, and like that never used to be me, you know. So I do think, the higher level of test is definitely making me shed a little bit more than I normally would. But fuck it, hey, we accept that when we start off, don't we?
Exactly, we're all making a trade-off, and it's good that we're keeping it real. But yeah, I'm gonna. If it's all right with you, we'll wrap up. This has been really good. But before that, do all your plugs. If there's any codes you want to give out.
Oh yeah, well, DMAC10 for discount and trained by JP Nutrition, guys. I don't actually post that as much as I should have, but I do have an affiliate link for that. So there's my code, my one and only code that I do have. But if anyone is interested in watching my YouTube channel, like you plugged earlier, Hamish, then get on that. I've been posting video pretty much every single week, and they will get a little bit more exciting now as I start prep, because obviously the off-season vlogs, they're pretty much the same. It's very hard to be a bodybuilder YouTuber when you're going through your off season and you're posting the same fucking full day of eating every couple of weeks. You know what I mean? But the prep vlogs will be coming around at the end of the year, and I really enjoyed doing those last year, and that was when I seen the most growth in my channel, because it was actually, there was something going on. So YouTube, Darragh Mac, Instagram, Darragh Mac_coach. And that's pretty much it, mate. So appreciate you having me on. It's been an honor. It's been a privilege. First podcast I've ever been on. So I remember you when I get to the big time, Hamish. When Joe Rogan asked me on, I'll say Hamish was the first person to get me on. So
there we go. Exactly. Well, I mean, quite a few of the guys I've spoken to, it's the first time being on, and that's the whole point of this. Is I think sometimes, I fully believe everyone I've got on here is going to be guys that people will be paying attention to in the future. So start listening now, because you'll learn early, rather than once they've got all the success. So yeah, follow Darragh's YouTube. I really do recommend it. He's very transparent, and you will learn plenty. And no, thank you very much for coming on. Cheers.
my man.